Welcome to my channel. I'm Chastity and this is Corporate Audacity, a channel where we discuss the audacity of corporations, the perils and triumphs of working in the corporate world. In today's video, we take a deep dive into the phenomenon that is remote work. Several people have asked about my experience working remotely, so I decided to create an informative video series on the topic of remote work. I've worked in the corporate world for almost 20 years now, and I've worked remotely on and off for the last 10. I began working from home in 2013, before it was highly coveted, and before there was a global health crisis causing a shift in the way we work. So in this multi-part series, we'll discuss the facts, the pros and the cons, and some of my own personal experiences with remote working, to help you make the best decision for you. This is only part 2 of 3, so make sure you subscribe and get your notifications for part 3, and you can find the link to part 1 in the description box. So check out that video first if you haven't already. Let's dive right in. As I was preparing my notes for this video, I came across an interesting article from the New York Post about remote workers doing everything except working. And I mean everything. Take a look. According to a recent survey, ditching the office gave remote workers more time to scroll through social media, shop online, do chores, and even have sex. Yes, you heard that correctly. This survey found that 1 in 7 employees only logged 3 to 4 hours of actual work. Instead, they were running errands, napping, and watching movies, among other things. Workers even evaded their boss's attention by occasionally moving their mouse so their status shows active rather than away or offline. I discussed this exact scenario in my previous video and why remote workers actually have to play the move the mouse game, so make sure you check out part 1 of this series. Now, these things do seem ridiculous, but I'll let you in on a little secret. Psst, guess what? Workers in the office are doing these exact same things. They're just not being monitored as closely. And what's more, if you received a 30-minute lunch and 2 15-minute breaks while you work in the office, you get the same 30-minute lunch and 2 breaks while working from home. And you can use that time as you please. So if you want to throw some dirty laundry in the washer, run to the post office, or pleasure yourself for 15 minutes, as long as it's not done at your workstation with your camera on, that's your choice. And as long as you're back from your break on time. But corporations are pulling out all the stops just so they can say, hey, we can't allow remote work anymore. Look at what these folks are doing. They'll even use these surveys and articles as ammunition. I say get over it, but hey, I'm not the employer. I just want you to know what you're up against. So let's finish up where we left off last time with the cons of remote working. We left off on number 5 of the cons of remote working in the last video. Let's do a brief review and then we'll dig into number 6. The cons of remote working, and there are many, may not be what you think. So we're lifting the veil of remote work and showing you the not so good side as well. You'll have to decide if these are really things you would endure just to work from home. Number 1, most leaders don't like remote work. Number 2, 24/7 availability. Number 3, less paid time off and lower pay. Number 4, higher taxes and health insurance premiums. Number 5, monitoring or spying. Number 6, higher utility bills, power outages. Number 7, inaccessible corporate perks or discounts. Number 8, no water cooler talk. Number 9, coworker stealing. And number 10, being on display. Now this list could be a lot longer, but these are the big ones that come to mind. Let's talk about number 6, higher utility bills and what you have to do when there is a power outage. One good thing about working in the office was that I could turn my heat and air conditioning off or set it on a lower setting during the day when no one was there, conserving energy. This is not the case when you work from home. You will have to run your heat and air during the day, all day long, if you want to work comfortably. This is an expense the company covers when you work in the office, but most companies are not covering home utility bills for their remote employees. So expect to pay a little more each month for heating and cooling. High-speed internet service, or Wi-Fi, is also an added expense. Sure, most people already have Wi-Fi at their homes that they pay for, But some employers may require a higher speed or different type of service than what you currently have, creating an additional monthly cost. Let's say you have the cheapest internet service plan that only offers a speed of 25 megabytes per second. Your employer could require that you have an internet speed of at least 100 megabytes per second. Some employers also require that you hardwire into your network and won't allow for wireless access. There are certain employers who will cover that cost for their employees, but those are few and far between. Let us know in the comments if your employer pays for your internet service so we can apply to work there. Let's talk about power outages at your home and what your responsibility is as a remote worker. When working in the office, if the power goes out, it is your employer's responsibility to figure out how to get it back on and whether or not to let you sit there and continue to be paid or go home early. However, when the power goes out at your home, it is your responsibility. So you must quickly make a decision about what to do. There are usually a few different options. If you work within driving distance of your office building, you can take a break and drive to your office to finish your workday there. The drive time is not included in your paid time if you're an hourly worker, so you must make up the time you lost driving to the office. The second thing you can do when your power goes out and you're not within driving distance of your office is to go to a friend or family member's office or go to a shared office space like the public library or a remote working hub. These places are usually hard to get into in the middle of the day, offer no privacy, and don't typically have a secure internet connection. So you really need to make sure you have a VPN to log into if you work with sensitive information. You also have to make up time when driving to one of these secondary locations. The third option, if your power goes out, is to take paid or unpaid leave. When my power went out unexpectedly a couple months ago, we received no prior notice that the city was working on a fault line nearby, and there would be a 3 to 4 hour interruption of service. Therefore, I had to take 3 hours of paid leave. Working at the library or another shared space just wasn't an option at that time. Something to think about if you want to work remotely. Let's get into number 7. Number 7, inaccessible corporate perks or discounts. Ooh, this one hurts. I love a good discount. One of the perks of working for a corporation is that they contract with all kinds of service providers to give their employees discounts. This is a great thing for the employee. You can save money on your phone bill, your cable bill, tickets to the local theme parks or concert venues, and even restaurants or groceries. So how could this be a bad thing? Well, I'll tell you. If you're a remote worker who lives outside of the state or locality your employer is in, you likely will not be eligible for many of the corporate discounts. For instance, if your employer offers discounts for a certain internet or cable company that does not service your area, you don't get a discount. Restaurants and grocery stores with corporate contracts tend to be local as well, so you may not have access to the free tacos at the local mom and pop taco shop. And you will likely not get to take advantage of the free tickets to the local amusement park that your coworkers will take their kids to this summer. Well, unless you decide to take a road trip. These things may seem trivial, but discounts can add up. One thing I miss most about being in the office is the free food. Our company used to provide free lunch for every other week, and it was glorious. When you work remotely, you don't get to take advantage of the free lunch, free donuts in the break room, or holiday parties and potlucks. Now, I can do without the potlucks, but I know certain people who live for a potluck. If that's you, remote work may not be your thing. Moving right along to number 8. Number 8, no water cooler talk. This used to be my favorite part of the morning, gossiping with coworkers. Well, it wasn't all gossip. It was about 75% gossip, 25% sharing the business of the business. This is an important part of working for any corporation in my mind. When you're a low or mid-level employee, you don't really get to hear a lot about what's going on with the business. That is, unless somebody who knows somebody knows about the business of the business. I have actually gotten additional projects, built strong working relationships, and solved a lot of work problems just by having a chat with a coworker in the break room. You know the old saying, it's not about what you know, but who you know. I firmly believe that. As a remote worker, it's a lot harder to build those relationships and get the company gossip. Many times the office coworkers see you as an outsider, or they don't trust you enough to share the business's business with you. Sure, we have messaging apps and email, but as I spoke about in part 1, all of that communication is closely monitored. That's one reason colleagues would say, meet me in the break room in 5 minutes, if there was something off the record they wanted to share. I know for a fact that having the water cooler talk could have saved me a lot of headache as a remote worker. If you know that you need to have those face-to-face conversations with coworkers, the remote gig may not be for you. Let's get into number 9. Number 9, coworker stealing. When I talk about stealing, I'm not talking about tangible physical property. Rather, I'm referring to intellectual property. This is your creative ideas, concepts, and any work that is derived from your mind. Now, your employer owns this property, but you may have spent weeks creating a concept or training to assist the company in some way or another. And this is the type of work that you've put your creative stamp on. It's typically the reason your employer hired you, because it's comprised of what you studied in school, your previous job experience, and your mental acumen. Well, guess what? Some of your coworkers do not have that same mental acumen, education, or employment experience. Or they're just lazy, so they steal. And it's a little easier to do electronically than it would be taking some papers off of your desk in the office or taking your leftover lasagna out of the break room fridge. With the rise of remote work came the switch over to SharePoint sites or shared drives and applications. Think about Microsoft SharePoint, OneDrive, Dropbox, or any other cloud-based application. Yes, these sites and applications have existed for years, but they started to become more widely used when people began to work remotely. Companies needed to store files in a single location that was widely accessible for their employees. They wanted to move away from people storing files in a locked file cabinet or even on their computer desktop, so everyone could access everything anytime as needed. Shared drives and sites are a good idea in theory, but certain employees do not own an original thought and go surfing through these applications for their next concept or idea they can pawn off as their own. This has happened to me a few times, and it's not a huge deal when there's no extra money involved, but when you know that someone else is getting paid off of your work, it can be infuriating. This is something to watch out for if you work remotely. Do a search of your own words or materials within shared sites regularly and limit access to your files if you can. Moving on to number 10 on our list of cons. Number 10, being on display. When you work from home, you are inviting your work to your home, and your boss and your coworkers come with it. Some employers require that their employees attend meetings with cameras on, no exceptions. That camera not only displays your face, it also displays your office space, which could be your bedroom or your kitchen. That camera can see your photographs, your kids' faces, and your husband's lack of desire to wear pants. That camera can hear your pets bark and your neighbor cutting the grass. It can hear your son whining and your mother-in-law humming her favorite gospel hymn. So whether you realize it or not, it's not just you working in your house. You have invited your whole team, your boss, your coworkers, your department, into your house. Some people tend to use that opportunity to be nosy or even comment on your home life, like they're watching a reality show. This is something that I had to get used to. I'm a very private person. I don't like people seeing inside my house unless they're an invited friend or family member. Video conferencing applications have made things much easier by offering settings to blur or change your background. I have begun using a fake or blurred background for every single meeting. If you're the type of person who doesn't like people looking into your home, you may want to reconsider working remotely. Now we've reached the end of our list of cons for remote working. But I have one con that's an honorable mention. Children. They can be a big nuisance when you're trying to work. So if you don't like your children or just don't like being around them while you're working, remote work may be an absolute no for you. Some working parents have opted to go back to the office for this very reason, and I completely understand. The pets are a close second, as I have considered putting my dog in daycare during the day. He likes to be held and petted when I'm trying to focus on completing a report. So pets and kids can be a big deterrence. Now that we have discussed all the pros and cons of remote work, I hope you have a better picture of what remote working is really like and have let go of some of the fairy tales. Although I do enjoy remote working, I have a better solution for those of you who may not be completely sold on remote work. It's hybrid working. Hear me out. This does involve going into the office some, but if I had my choice, I would choose hybrid working over fully remote working. And it appears some employers are making that choice for you anyway. As we spoke about in part 1 of the series, many employers are pulling away from the 100% remote working model and offering a hybrid work schedule. Hybrid work typically entails going into the office once or twice per week, once a month, 1 week per month, or whatever agreed upon schedule, and then working from home the rest of the time. I like this idea, and I used to do it in the past. It's kind of the best of both worlds. The only downside to me is remembering to take your laptop with you every time you switch locations. I have forgotten my laptop a time or two and had to make the commute back home to retrieve it in one of my in-office days. So definitely look into hybrid positions if you like that idea too. I'm not here to convince you either way, just trying to help you make the most informed decision for your work life. Well, we've reached the end of part 2 of the remote working series, and there's one more part to discuss. In part 3, we'll talk about the scams and deceptive practices that often surround remote jobs and the recruitment process. So make sure you subscribe and turn on your notifications so we can continue the conversation. Also, let me know in the comments about your own experiences with remote work, as they may be completely different from my own. Either way, I'd like to hear from you. And hey, remember to share this video with others who may be interested in this topic. This is Chastity with Corporate Audacity. Thanks for watching.